You got 50 games to talk about.
I'm talking about every last fucking one of them. I think Turd was saying that like Eggplant podcast that I still need to listen to is like planning on doing an episode for each
per
individual game.
That's a great, but like, God, that's going to be a lot of episodes.
That's a year worth of podcasts if it's a weekly podcast.
Yeah,
I mean,
shit.
I don't know how they're planning on doing it. I do plan on making a video, probably not for every game, but
for the ones that you like.
Honestly, this game, UFO 50, is fucking saving me on the video making front because I can just, here's this one game that I can just probably make at least 25 videos out of.
Good.
But it's saving me. They're like perfect size for this. Yeah, I got some thoughts though. I do have some mixed thoughts, I will say.
Let's get going.
Let's save it.
Save it.
All right, ready?
Yes, sir.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And I was about to say, and Randall Nolery, but we're absent, just the two of us tonight, missing Randall this week due to a busy family stuff going on and whatnot. So obviously we're missing him, but we'll be looking forward to digging into some video games. I know John and I have dug into my resolution game, Return of the Obra Dinn. And I think Randall had mentioned, we were talking in the Discord, kind of getting into that as well. So I'm looking forward to all three of us being able to sync up and talk about that one down the road. But I am excited to for the first time starting my game, my resolution game, not too far after the year. I was going to say after the year started, but not too close to the year's end, I should say. But nonetheless, I guess I'll get things kind of started off here. We got tons of video games to talk about per usual, and I've got 50 games to talk about here right off the bat, although I'm obviously not going to talk about all of them. But due to FOMO in our Discord, our buddy Turd Boomerang was posting constantly about his UFO 50 updates, and this is a game that I've been waiting for quite a while. It's I don't know exactly how to describe it or what to call it, but it is like an individual game that you purchase or app or whatever you want to call it. But it's $25 and you get 50 individual games on that or built within that thing. It's a collection. Yeah, a collection of games. And they keep now the thing that kind of is like, I don't want to say I've had a mixed reaction to this. I'm very much enjoying it off the bat. I very much like this, and I'm looking forward to playing more of the games. I've played about 15 of the 50 so far.
Okay.
Probably played maybe even 20 of them, because I've fired up a few just briefly. But right off the bat, it's just such a cool experience. Like, you fire it up, and at first there's like this weird title screen that pops up. It's almost like this new wave, vaporwave sort of visual thing going on, and it's like Moss Mouth and this it's very CD era, early CD games or something like that. Mm-hmm. Is what it reminds me of. And there's credits scrolling on the screen, but then as soon as you press a button, then it just goes to a more traditional 8-bit kind of intro NES kind of load up screen. And then you kind of press, and I wasn't expecting there to be so you actually have separate save files. There's 3 different save files, which I wasn't expecting. But then once you fire one up, you basically are presented with this list of 50 fictional games. The UFO, I forget what the name of the actual fictional console is now off the top of my head, but they basically there's this team of 6 to 8 developers, if I'm remembering correctly. The main kind of lead one being Mossmouth of Spelunky fame, kind of being the head of the team, if you will, but they've teamed up with a bunch of people that they've worked with in the past. The main thing that kind of caught my attention about this game was when I saw that the developer of Downwell was joining the team and contributing some of the games to the collection. So I was like, oh, wow, that's one of my favorite games ever. This is leaning into again, it's this fantasy 8-bit retro console. And what I wasn't expecting, so right off the bat, you're presented with these games and they're in seemingly a random order. At least I was assuming they were just going to be alphabetical, but you just have, 5 rows of 10 cartridges. They're little mini floppy disks that you can see. And then as you highlight them, and it's got a really retro menu system. It feels like you're playing a retro system, but it's really it feels modern at the same time. I don't know how exactly to explain that, but it just feels not super primitive when you're selecting the games. It feels just really slick. A lot of love was put into how these games are how you select them and pick them. And even the first time you pick one, or actually I think anytime you play one for the first time, it's kind of a little bit grayed out. And then when you pick it, it shows a little image of air being blown on it and like dusting off the cartridge, and then it like highlights it a little more colored, like add some color to the image or whatever. Just like they thought about every element of this experience. It really feels like you're like firing up this like mysterious console. And then again, where I was like, oh, I thought the games were going to be alphabetical. What order are these in? And they're actually like chronologically. So they like, again, it's like this console existed from I think 1980 to 1987 or something like that, and they just have the games listed all chronologically from there. And you even see like one of the things that caught my eye right off the bat was like one of the games in the collection is called Campanella, and then I saw there's Campanella 2 and Campanella 3, so they have like sequels to games. Like they really went all in on like this concept of this like fake fictional fantasy console. But it's just so cool how they leaned into it. But that said, the thing that I've been like a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed by, but they really have like leaned into saying like, there's 50 complete games on this, cartridge or whatever. And to me, like this feels very much like a game jam experience to me. Like they're a little more polished than that for sure, because they've been working on this game or collection of games for about 8 years now, 8 or 9 years. And I think they even they were planning on getting it out earlier than this, but then they were like, you know what, let's work on Spelunky 2, let these game ideas cook a little bit more. I'm sure some of the other developers continue to work on some of their projects and whatnot, but it still feels like a lot of the games are like really, like if I bought now, like in my retro collecting days and whatnot, like bought one of these games on NES and like popped it in, I'd be like, man, this is a pretty bare bones experience for not every single one of these. There's some RPGs, there's all sorts of different game genres on this cartridge, or on this, fake cartridge, if you will. But that said, like, I don't know, like I was just expecting like a little bit more the way they like hyped it up, like, oh, like these are all full complete games. I just was like a little bit surprised by like the game jammy nature of even just like the game like design ideas and stuff like that. Like they just feel like kind of like a core idea, just like fleshed out is not simplistic. I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say exactly, but just like, for example, like one of the first games that Turd Boomerang, our pal in the Discord, was sharing a bunch was this game called Magic Garden, which is this like top down snake style game meets Pac-Man. You're basically like, there's like these slimes on the screen. You play as this character that's just walking around the screen. You can actually jump over characters as well, or like jump over a tile that is dangerous or whatever, and you're just picking up blobs. And then there'll be like these moving goal sections that are just like stars on. It's like a grid-based, tile level, single screen kind of situation. And then if any of the little pink blobs that are following behind you, any of the other colors are actual enemies. But the pink ones you can pick up, they trail behind you, and then you drop them off at this other, like these star landing pads or whatever. And then that'll drop a potion, which then lets you pick that up if you drop enough of them off. Pick up that potion, and then now you can start eating up all the other like enemy characters just like you would in Pac-Man. But again, that's like pretty much it. I mean, maybe there's more to it if you get deeper and deeper into a run, because these games are very hard. But like, again, if I bought that as like an NES game and popped it in, like it's a cool game, it's really fun, but like no way does that feel like a complete game to me. It's a complete like arcade concept loop, but it feels like very much like a game jam idea, but just polished up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that like an arcade game in particular does kind of just need that loop where like if you think about Pac-Man, there isn't much to that game, especially like a game that is like fictionally supposed to be coming out in 1980. Like, yeah,
something. It is one of the earlier games in the collection too. Yeah, like probably like 85, because I've been just mostly playing through them chronologically. But I guess like in Pac-Man though, still you're getting like, I think there's like 100 different levels. Granted, there's not all that much variety, but like here you're like pretty much just presented with like the same static single screen that just procedurally generates, where the enemies spawn, which is, I mean, again, I don't know what Snake is like on the NES or whatever. Right. And this is like technically, 1980 is pretty early. For this like fictional era that they're aiming for. Like the late games in the NES era came out in like 93, 94, where like the latest games here came out in 87.
Yeah, you just need to buy into the kayfabe of the game.
Yeah, but I just like, I guess that's just like a small little nitpick, but they really have like promoted like these are complete games. It's like all over all the advertisement. And to me, like they're not complete games, but they are a little bit more of like a they're complete enough games is kind of how they feel to me, if that makes sense, for the ones I've played. But some of the ones that have really stood out to me so far, the first one that really caught my attention was this game called Mortal, Mortol. And it's a puzzle platformer where you play as this character where you have a set number of lives, and then you can either blow yourself up, which blows up like some of the terrain and level around you, but that uses up one of your lives. And then you can also turn into like a stone platform, also which uses up one of your lives. Or you can, like, they call it an arrow attack, but you basically just like launch one of your bodies like into the wall, like face first, and you just stick into the wall, and then you become like a platform that you can jump on. But again, you have to like get through. I haven't even made it through like the first stage because I was just kind of firing up a bunch of different levels or a bunch of different games and whatnot. And I've really loved like how, number one, how long this first stage was. I was like, man, this is crazy. Like I'm like solving puzzle after puzzle, and it's just throwing more at me. And there's like throughout the stage, even spots where you need to collect more lives. I don't know that you necessarily need to, but like making it easier to get through the rest of the stage. But yeah, I thought that game was probably my favorite so far, I would say. Again, I've only kind of scratched the surface on a lot of these games. Another really cool one was a Tactics. It's kind of like a top-down, like grid-based tactics game, but your characters are like constantly moving forward. All you're able to do is either you can move them backwards or either up or down into like a new row horizontally, and you're just trying to get them to make it to the other team's wall so that it attacks their wall. And like obviously you're just trying to like shift your players or your characters to block the other team with different, you have like archers and sword characters and a few different enemy types. Again, I've only played the first couple of stages, but it's just kind of like addicting gameplay where you're just shifting your little grid cursor and shifting these characters around. Another really fun, like just arcade kind of game was called Kick Club. You just play, I think a lot of these games too, you can play two players. I've obviously only played single player, but this is one that I believe can play two players, and you just play as like a soccer character or player. And it's just like single screen arcade levels, and you just jump around. The only way to kill an enemy is like you have to grab the ball and then kick it into an enemy just by, aiming it at them while you hold it down. And pretty simple arcade action, but it was just kind of like, okay, this is like, feels like an Ice Climbers, kind of like NES arcade era kind of thing. And then I mentioned that Campanella game, or that series, I guess I should say, because there's 3 of them. So I did that. Those were ones where I kind of jumped out of the order a little bit because I did play that first one kind of in the order. And that they're all very different, actually, or pretty different. The first one is like very old school. Like it's one of those games where you play as like a little UFO. I think this is almost like the main, game in the series, or flagship title, mascot, if you will. Right. But like you have to like keep pressing like the one button to like feather on it to keep like your UFO will just fall all the way to the ground if you're not like constantly pressing the thrust button. Right. You know what I mean? Like, but if you hold it down, you're just going to smash into the ceiling, and you can't touch any walls. You can't touch anything. And you just have this like little swipe attack. And it's more like an arcade puzzle single screen kind of game, but like really precision platformery at the same time. And then I kind of can't remember, like Campanella 2 almost had a little bit of like a cave story or like Blaster Master vibe. Like you could hop out of your UFO and like explore a little bit with like a character. And then Campanella 3 was kind of like a 3D shooter. It was one of the later, like second to last game in the collection, I think. And it's almost like a pseudo, it's in 2D obviously, but it's like a 3D, almost like not quite Star Fox style, but like that kind of scrolling. Yeah. Enemies are coming at you from a distance, in a pseudo 3D effect. And then the other game I just wanted to give a quick shout out to, where I actually thought the game was like broken at first. The game's called Mooncat. And this game controls where any button on the D-pad, it's like a side-scrolling kind of precision platformer. It almost feels like a little bit like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Nowhere near as like crazy difficult as that, at least in the early goings. But like any button on the D-pad makes your character go to the left, and then any face button makes your character walk to the right. So it's basically like as if you had like one giant button on one side of the controller to go right, and one giant button to go left. But then you have to like, if you're walking right and then you press the other, like a button press the other button, essentially that'll cause you to jump. So you have to like be kind of juggling what direction you're walking. And then if you're in the air, if you press them both again at the same time, you do kind of like a ground pound. But like one of the things that's like interesting about these games, like there is like if you pause a game, you can look at what the controls are.
Yeah.
But there are no instructions for any of these games. Like they don't give you any like rhyme or reason. There a few of the games will maybe have like an intro thing that like that Mortal game, for example, like kind of shows you can do this arrow move or you can do this bomb or turn into a block, and then it's just like solve the puzzles. But some of the games literally do nothing. And I think one of the games is called Kid Koala or Koala Kid or something like that. And you just, I was asking in the Discord, and Turd Boomerang was like, oh yeah, you just have to push the star block to the end of the stage. But like, there's all these like number blocks, and I'm pushing them around, and I'm like, I don't, do I have to put these in order? Like, what am I supposed to do with these? And he said that I guess you just like can't push like the higher numbers into the lower numbers or vice versa. But nonetheless, like you don't know what any of the rules are. It's all about like deducing them for yourself. So it really is kind of like that feel of like, I found this at a garage sale and it looked like a cool game and I bought it, and you know, I have to figure it out for myself, or even obviously people online are going to be sharing their tips and tricks and stuff like that. So,
which is also part of it now.
Right. It's kind of like it's almost like they expected people to be doing that and like wanted to have a little bit of that flavor of the, cause that's like the only thing about the experience that feels a little not modernized, you know, cause otherwise there is that slick ability to just jump between the systems, and it really feels like it's like I wish this is what like the NES Mini or the Super Nintendo Mini, like I wish this is what the interface looked like when you're picking the games and how slick and just juicy everything feels. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it's such a cool twist, and like I'm just glad that it exists, you know, as much as I've like made a few little gripes here and there. I'm really excited to check out more of the games in this collection and like do some streams or record some videos proper and like explore some more of these, and hopefully talk about some of them with you guys over the course of time as time goes on, because I'm definitely going to be scooping this up on consoles when it comes eventually, you know, because I just know I'll play it more there as well. So, but I just couldn't wait.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, why don't I kick it over to you? Or I guess we'll both talk about this one here a little bit. But yeah, I guess we've been playing some 20 Minutes Till Dawn.
Yes, sir.
Which you kind of put on my radar, or not on my radar, but kind of put me over the hump to actually pick it up.
Yeah. I think, it's been on both of our radars for a bit, but we kind of have inspired each other in turn to pick this game up at different times. But I've been playing it off and on. It's a great game. Like, I know you talked about it on the podcast that like at first you think like that 20 minutes seems like a big investment, but unless you're doing the entire run, it really isn't. And even when you are, it really isn't. Like it
really is not. Yeah, it's almost the perfect length, to be honest.
It really is. And I've done the 10-minute version as well. And every time that I do that, like it doesn't unlock anything permanently in terms of content or achievements. But at the same time, it's like, if I only have 10 minutes, this is kind of a good mode to have.
Perfect little dose. Yeah, if I just want a quick fix.
Yeah. So I've beaten the game with I've survived 20 minutes with 3 characters and 3 different weapons. And I have not done any darkness, which adds additional difficulty once you've beaten it with a specific character. But by beating it with the characters, I've been also trying to go against my inclinations of how I typically will unlock a thing. Like when I started playing the game, I was only using Shauna, the default character, and I was only using the default weapon, and I was only unlocking like the runes, which are your skill tree, which unlock like permanent things across all characters, which give you extra abilities and make the whole game easier. But at some point I was just like thinking about that, and I was like, well, if I unlock all the runes before I unlock any other character, is that really going to make any of the characters feel all that different? If I have a baseline? So I started spending a lot more than I typically would in one of these like games, or like, you know, how roguelike elements in arcade games work nowadays. And so that also led me to experiment more with more characters. I've unlocked more. But yeah, like each character has their own specific secondary abilities, which unlock like a new aspect to it. I really liked Dasher, which was a character that every 10 seconds turns into an invulnerable deer that just does melee damage while you're a deer. So it's really good to like get yourself into tight spaces, like when you know that countdown is coming up, and then you just busting through and collecting every pickup while being invulnerable, and like also kind of knocking out any of the projectiles which are heading your way. Like there's a lot of like interesting secondary like techniques or strategies that you think about with every new character or every new gun, and like yeah, it's a really solid bullet heaven that like I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's one of the best I've played too. Like I know I'm just going to be a little bit of a broken record here on whatever I said on the Save It for the Cast when I talked about this one, but I just really like how like all the things start stacking up. Again, that's what these games are made to do, but like all the little tweaks of like, oh, I'm using like the double Uzis or whatever it is, the SMGs. So, but then it's like every shot from each gun is counting as a shot. So now it's like every 10 shots, that's really only every 5 shots. And then it's like, or it's every 10 shots from each gun or however it applies. But it's like all of a sudden I'm like, you know, I'm playing as the character that shoots out extra flames or lightning bolts or something every few shots. And then I lean into that a little extra. And I like how each buff that you pick along the way has like a few different like subsequent, like it seems like it splits into 2 paths and then has one main like final upgrade. I just really like that. Like,
but then when you upgrade at least 2 of them to the final upgrade, then you get like synergy upgrades.
Ooh, I don't know if I've even noticed that.
Yeah, like you have to. So then you have to like, you know, be devoting your upgrades to those specific ones if they show up. But then you know, like you can also kind of like shoot yourself in the foot. Like there was one where I had an ability that was triggering on every reload, but then I kept picking up ones that increased my clip size. So then like I wasn't doing reload like as often as I could have been because I was still like just shooting like regularly because I had all the ammo and I needed to use it. So it's really good at like giving you know, like a little bit of strategy of like choosing your upgrades and like what you're actually going to be doing.
Yeah, either like leaning into the upgrades you already got going or making sure you don't kind of like you said, you almost like downgrade some of the stuff, like where it's like I remember having a similar thing where like I increased my reload speed, so I'm reloading really fast, but I was playing as a character that like did some kind of like, I think it was like when you're reloading, you like melee attack automatically, like spin your gun around or something or whatever weapon it was. And I was like, oh, well, now that I have no reload time, this doesn't help me at all anymore. Where before I could like kind of, you know, mow down a bunch of enemies real quick. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I actually haven't unlocked any of the extra stages yet. I did beat a run on the 10 minutes, but I've made it very close on the 20 minutes. But I think I still had like a minute and a half remaining. But I love like the like kind of like Game Boy style presentation to it, like something about like the green colors. I think might be a couple different palettes you can pick from. I know you can like actually outline the characters because that's one thing. It can be like a little visually busy at times, which I guess that's the nature of a bullet hell or bullet heaven. But I guess to just jump over to another roguelike that I've also talked about on the Save It for the Cast and also been playing quite a bit lately. When I talked about it on the Save It for the Cast, I had only played the demo. But then shortly after the game came out, they put it on sale from $15 to $10. So I was like, oh man, I was already thinking about getting this at full price. So that was just the little nudge I needed, which is weird. The discount came like maybe like a few days after the game came out. So it's like a launch discount, but after the fact. But nonetheless, kind of similar to 20 Minutes Till Dawn. This is a totally different style game, but you have a few different characters you can pick from that all have a slightly different ability. And this is like kind of like a side-on perspective tactics game or tactics strategy, like puzzle, you know, deck building, some light deck building elements. But you basically play, again, as like one single character. You got the side-on perspective. In the opening stages, there's like 5 tiles, essentially, or 5 spaces that your character can stand on. But as you get further into a run, like there can be, I think, up to like 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 like tiles across. And then the enemies will kind of spawn in waves. And then you're basically just trying to jump. The controls at first, I was like, there's too much going on here. Like You got to press ZL to jump to move to the right, ZR to move to the right, ZL to move to the left.
What's the name of the game?
Shogun Showdown.
Okay. I don't know if you
did I say that?
I don't think you did.
Well, thanks for that. It'll be in the timestamps nonetheless. But yeah, I might have forgot to say it. But yeah, I forgot where I was even going with that now. The side like perspective or whatever, and you got these 5 tiles, and then you're basically the enemies spawn in waves. And then they start out and every enemy has its own kind of behavior and they kind of telegraph their moves. It's all turn based and everything. And pretty much almost everything you do counts as a move or a turn. So if I'm adding a card, if you will, or I think they call it a tile into like my attack queue, that's using a turn. And you can have up to 3 attacks in your queue at a given time. So you might want to say, hey, this enemy in the front, I'm all the way to the left. The first enemy has 3 health. The enemy behind them has 2 health. So I'm going to want to do like move up to them, do like enough damage with my melee attack to kill them and get them out of the way, and then have my arrow attack be the last attack I do so that I take my last shot and hit the enemy behind them. Because obviously if I do the arrow first, and that's one of the things that doesn't take up a move. So once you have attacks in your queue, you can rearrange them or even remove them from the queue without using up a turn. But anything else, like whether you're moving a space on the board or even turning around, you have to like change the direction you're facing, or you can obviously wait a turn, or attacking as well. Now, the nice thing is you always get the first attack. Like if it's my turn and I attack, even if like an enemy's about to attack me, I get to attack them first. So you can always be like, okay, as long as I do enough damage, I'll kill them before they attack me. Or, for example, the first character you have has its own ability where basically if you're side by side next to another character and you're facing them and you move into them, you're going to like swap tiles with them. So you might be able to even like in roguelike fashion, like, okay, this enemy is geared up to attack me. I'm sandwiched in between them, but now I'm going to move to the right, swap spaces with the character to the right of me, and then now that character on the left or the enemy is going to attack that character that's now in the middle and either kill them or just do regular damage. But it's just so tactical. Like you have to just think about every last move, like every decision you make counts. And it just feels like the perfect balance of like arcade. The second character is the only other one I've unlocked so far. So instead of being able to swap places with the enemies, you can just push an enemy. Like if you're right next to them, you can push them forward a tile instead of moving, forward one yourself. So you might be able to push them into another enemy's attack or whatever it might be, or push them one tile away so that their attack won't hit you anymore. But I don't know. I've just been so impressed with like the art style, the music, the different biomes. It's a pretty long game too. Like a lot of roguelikes, there's maybe like 4 biomes you got to get through to get to the end or something like that. And like I made it through, I think 4, 5, 6 even on a run, and I felt like, man, this is still going deep because the only way to unlock characters is just by getting further into a run. And it's like, man, I've only unlocked 1 and there's 5 total to unlock. So, I don't know. I just feel like there's a good variety even in the 2 characters already, even though it's just a subtle difference in their special ability. But just watching all the different cooldowns for your special move, for the cards, like just, I don't know. You can upgrade each individual move like a certain number of times. So you get to like these shrine or shops or whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. And then you can choose, a lot of times you can re-roll as well, but it'll be like, okay, this will upgrade this, damage card or whatever, this attack. It'll upgrade it by 2 damage points, but it'll also add like 4 to the cooldown, or it'll just a lot of risk reward choices to make all throughout the run, both in like the attacks and just decisions you make during a battle. And another thing that's really nice too is any items you pick up. So like health, there's quite a few like different drops. Like you can mirror, like flip the enemy's attacks or have them like just do a like die roll and have them randomly change their next move or something like that. But all of those don't take a turn either. And you can have up to 3 at the start, and then you can even add more to your collection as you get deeper into a run with different upgrades. So you can really get you can be in dire straits, and the next thing you know, you pick up 3 health upgrades, use them all back to back, or not upgrades, but just health pickups. Mm-hmm. Use all your potions, and the next thing you know, you're back at full health, and keeping the run going. So I don't know. It's been the perfect game to play on Switch. And another one, just like Gun Rounds recently, where I was like, all these complex controls, like I'm going to hit the wrong button. But once I got it down, I was like, no, this feels really intuitive. I still, once in a while, I'll hit like wait on accident instead of turn around. And I'm like, fuck, that ruined my run. I wish there was an undo, like at least one in case you mess up. But I don't know. Other than that, I really have no gripes about this game. One that I intend to play quite a bit more of on Switch here.
Nice.
But yeah, why don't we kick it back over to you here to wrap things up?
So I've been playing a lot of Star Fox likes. We've been trying to come up with a good term for them. It's like on rails 3D, like back for, I don't know,
space shooters or something, because I know like when
third person perspective,
because like on rails, like the first thing I think of more is like Time Crisis or like those kind of games are like I think what a lot of people think of when like on rails, but it's like kind of on rails, but you have a little bit of freedom of movement,
right? It's more of like a moving perspective with your character. But we talked about Whisker, Squadron Survivor, and like I think we also maybe mentioned Exodiac on the podcast. Like we've been looking at a bunch of different titles in this genre, and I picked up EVERSPACE. Is that the title of it? Oh god!
Yeah,
it's like every time I think about it, like I always forget that that's the name.
Well, I had it confused with a different game too when I looked it up. I was like, oh, this isn't the game I thought it was.
Yeah, but I think they're coming out with EVERSPACE 2 recently.
Yep, I saw that
soon.
when I looked it up. Yeah.
So like they had the original on sale and it looked like pretty interesting, so I picked it up like for real cheap. And to give like my like I don't know spoiler like final judgment on it, it's like it's fine. It's an all right game. I wouldn't like give it my full-throated endorsement, but like I enjoyed it. It's got a lot of interesting ideas, but like it has these twin stick controls that like I'm still having a little difficulty like navigating around. One of them like the left control stick is mapped to strafe and the right control stick is matched to aiming. And I was able to invert the aiming one, but I wasn't able to invert the strafing one. Weird. Like it's the options there, but I can't access the menu because sometimes Steam Deck is just a little weird on what it allows you to like actually access without having to like use a mouse and keyboard or whatever.
Yeah, like it thinks a mouse is plugged in or something and it like yeah.
So I was just trying to get used to it without the inverted controls, as is my typical preference. Yeah. But like I was still having a good time, but like there were so many little bits and pieces of it that just like stuck out to me as like, all right, like this isn't the design choice I would have made, or like this is a little grating. Like I think it has actually like pretty decent space flight. So it's a roguelike structure, which is also kind of a thing that I'm holding against it, that I think it would just be better and more of like a straight up arcade structure. Yeah, like
not
Star
every
Fox.
Arcade experience like pick up and play needs to have that roguelike element like just added into it. Sometimes it's awesome, but sometimes it's just the procedural generation can be a hindrance sometimes too.
Yeah, and it's not even the level. It's more of like, oh, there needs to be RPG elements to you like getting stronger with every run. And like the thing that I really love about the original, or not the original Star Fox, but Star Fox 64 is that like you just kind of learned the levels and you got better as you like memorized the level layouts and like just got better at the game and controls. Like it wasn't like this level of like, oh, you've gotten your shields up like to a higher level, so they'll take more damage, or you've gotten you've unlocked diplomacy and that unlocks a new like trading thing. And like I don't think the crafting elements in this game are good at all. I think it's just another system that isn't necessary for it to function. But like, all of this to say, you get these level by like every single level is its own what would be all range mode level in Star Fox, even though you have also 300. It's not 360. It's more than that. It's a full sphere of movement. So you're moving up and down as opposed to like left and right as well, like in full like free aiming. So it is more, I think we've talked about like underwater movement in games as well.
Yeah.
So like it is actually really fun to be in a dogfight in this game where like an enemy that is coming straight towards you suddenly starts looping underneath you, and then you can just start like going above you, and then just your entire frame of reference moves around in such an interesting way that like I haven't really experienced in other games. So like I really like a lot of aspects of this game. But I just think that the end result of it is kind of messy, and it has too many systems to make it like an elegant, just like pick up and play sort of game. Like every time I do a run, I was like, I don't know how to farm for materials in order to craft more like low missiles. Like once I run out, I just kind of run out. And then I'm like, all right, well, this run's going to end soon then, I guess. Like, but like at the same time, I'm really glad that they did this, because I think that this is, at least for me, and this might also just be me not knowing about a lot of different games. Like it's kind of hard for discovery in like certain genres when like, you know, you're not a AAA game, or you're not getting media coverage, or you're not breaking through in an indie scene. Like, I don't know where to find these games. Like I've heard of a few of them, and like we've talked about some of them on this podcast, but overall, like I'm sure people are making these games, but I have no idea where they are. And like, I kind of like that this is at least a relatively higher budget game in this genre.
Yeah, it's a nice looking game for sure. It's one that like I think I had it on my Switch wish list at some point, and I remember thinking like, I don't know if Switch is the platform for this, just thinking like, oh, it looks like it might, you know, put it through the paces a little bit, being like a full 3D.
It's really pretty. Like,
yeah,
but I don't think it would necessarily be demanding. I think it could probably run on Switch pretty well, but like,
it all just depends. Like you just like how good the port is, you know?
Right. And if like, they put all of the graphics into ray tracing for like a star that is like shining like a million different rays down on all of the like meteors that are in the field of vision. But like, I don't know, like it's an interesting idea that I want people to pick up on and iterate on, but at the same time, like I know that the video game development industry is in like such dire straits right now that like it's really hard for people to like take chances on things that are either untested, like not like, oh, like we understand the formula of what this genre is like. This is still kind of not in its infancy, but you know, like there isn't the standard like that everything is held against. Like it still kind of is just a few games, and then like I don't know.
Or if there is a standard, it's like Star Fox 64, you know, or something like that. Even though obviously like you're talking about these dogfight elements, which there is a little bit of that in like the multiplayer modes in Star Fox 64, but like there you don't see many. Again, I don't play that many. You know, I know there's Ace Combat and those games and like stuff like that, but those are like big AAA, like, you know, there's not really an in-between.
Yeah. Like I would love an incredibly stripped down version of this. Like I feel like this would be so good with like a Nintendo 64 level of graphics. Like the graphics are great. I think it looks really pretty, and I think it's a good like I don't know, like use of that like setting to have like really interesting nebula and other star systems in the background. But I don't know, give me a flat texture and a like a box background. I don't need much to be pleased. Yeah,
exactly. No, I would definitely like every now and then there's even this game on Switch called like Earhart something. I think it's another roguelike kind of tinged experience. It's more like you're flying airplanes and it's like Amelia Earhart inspired or something like that. But I don't think it's full blown like dogfight, but it does show like you have this like verticality to things, to your movement. And so I don't know, there's just something like anytime I see that in a game, like even though like I'll watch the trailer and I'm like, this game looks like just okay, but I'm still like, but I never get that experience in a game. So like I kind of want to pick it up just because maybe it could be good, you know, or something like that.
God, there was I've seen like a few like game trailers or like back when Twitter was a thing. I would see like little clips of like game ideas that like I also never saw fleshed out into full games or get released. And like every time that I like come across a game like this, like where I'm playing this, I'm like, this is so close to a game that I really want to play and that I know would like resonate so deeply with me. But like, I just, at the end of the day, have to be like, it's not this one. I'm hoping it'll be another one later, but we'll keep the search on.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, yeah, I think we done enough video game chatting for this evening, unless you got anything else you want to add to the list here, John.
Not right now.
Nice. Well, yeah, as always, we can wrap things up there then, and you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and virtually pretty much anywhere else on the internet as well. And until next week, we will catch you then, and take care.
Bye.
I sent that "Everyone Is My Friend" song to my cousin and my brother, and I was like, I doubt you guys are gonna like this song, but I was like, I'm just taking a stab in the dark. I was like, something about this song just has like an undeniable like groove to me. I just love it. And they actually both kind of liked it, but they both were like, but that singer does kind of wear on you by the end of the song. And I was like, man, this is him at his absolute best singing that could ever happen. Like, there's maybe one or two other times where I've heard him hit some actual notes where I was like, okay, he's actually singing in this song.
I think that is one of the benefits of having been really into Bright Eyes in like high school, is that no amount of, or like Daniel Johnston, like no amount of like bad singing phases me at all. Like it cannot register to me. There is no goofy voice you can do as a singer that will take me out of a song.
Nothing, like at all?
Nothing.
Because I can be taken out like in like a Rush song or something like that. When it's like, those kind of
same with like
vocals.
Guns N' Roses. Like those are very similar. And like AC/DC. Those are three of a
Motley Crue, any of those bands.
Van Halen. Like
yeah.